Hi and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today I'll be doing a review of a Longines Bi-Compax chronograph. Now this is the second watch lent to me by Igor, a very generous viewer, so thanks once more. The watch is part of the master collection that has vintage inspired models that I must admit look gorgeous. This one was inspired by their chronograph from the 1940s that used their in-house movement, the 13ZN, which was also one of the first flyback chronographs in the world. Now when it comes to the specs, this watch is a perfect size for my 6.9-inch wrist at a diameter of 39mm with a lug-to-lug of only 46. The thickness is about 11mm, which is very impressive for an automatic chronograph, especially if you're used to Valjoux-powered watches. Now the thickness comes from a very slim movement in this, but also comes at a price, but we'll cover that when we get to the movement. The weight is only 86 grams, which in combination with the dimensions makes the watch very comfortable to wear. Not to mention it looks beautiful and proportionate on the wrist. Well, mine at least. Now the strap this watch originally comes on is an alligator strap, but this one has been replaced for a Hirsch one. And it also works great with the look of the watch. It comes with a machined and fully polished deploying buckle signed with the Longines logo. This watch can be had with a bracelet, but I think it just belongs on the leather. From the shape of the case to the dial, it all works with leather the best. NATOs, if you ask me, are a big no-no on this watch, although I'm sure there are people who will wear it even like that. The case is as classic as it can get. I mean, no experimentation was done here, and one might even call it bland and boring. But guess what? Not all watches need to be a look-at-me type of watch. Sometimes boring is what suits us best, especially when executed as pretty as this one is. The bezel is rounded and complements the soft lines of the lugs that curve at just the right angle. The whole case is polished as you might expect, which means the watch will be a scratch magnet. But then again, this is not the type of a watch you will take to the jungle with you. The crown is decently sized and signed, and the chronograph pushers have an old world look to them. Now the old world look is especially evident underneath the sapphire crystal, on what has to be one of the nicest looking dials I have seen. It is silver in color almost to the point of being white, and features a barleycorn pattern on the main level with concentric grooves on the subdials. The hour markers are painted on, but in such a rich way they give an impression of being applied, while in reality only the Longines logo is applied. The overall writing is kept to a minimum, making the dial very clean, especially considering it is a chronograph. Now the Bi-Compax name comes from the layout of the subdials, and it is my favorite layout when it comes to chronographs. I especially like the size of the subdials as they are slightly larger than what we usually see. They're sunken a bit and separated by a very fine silver outline. The markers are railroad track style with finely printed numerals and also look like something from 70 years ago. Now on the outside of the dial there is a chapter ring with finely printed numerals and markers. And all the printing is very sharp and flawless. There is a date window at 6 o'clock, adding even more to the already incredible symmetry of the dial. And although it does add to the functionality, I think the watch would have looked even better without one. The hands are a thing of beauty, and I couldn't think of any other style that would work better with the overall look of the watch. They're very thin and very long. They appear black at first, but when looked at an angle, you realize they're actually blued. Now whether it's real thermal bluing or paints, I have no idea. But if I had to guess, I would say it's the former. Now if we look at the back of the watch, we're greeted to an exhibition caseback that is also made of sapphire. And this is the kind of exhibition caseback and movement I like to see, meaning it's properly sized for this watch. Now if you recall my Citizen GT video, although the movement was also pretty, it kind of looked tiny compared to the rest of the watch. Here that's really not the case, and it really makes the back look pretty. Now the movement is also beautiful to look at and is both the best part of the watch and also its possible downfall. Now as I mentioned at the beginning, it's not a Valjoux 7750, which is why we have this incredible thinness, giving additional elegance to the already beautiful watch. If it used the Valjoux, the thickness would have been probably way over 14. So from that point of view, I'm very happy they went with this. Now Longines calls it caliber L651, but it is in fact the ETA 2894. And that kind of bothers me when manufacturers don't disclose information clearly on their website. I mean, to us watch people, it's clear right away it is an ETA movement, just by the fact Longines is part of the SWAT group. But to someone who is new to this hobby and who might want to get an in-house movement because he or she heard it's the bomb, he or she might get the false impression this movement is in-house. Now, to get things clear, I have nothing against it not being in-house, but I would just prefer if they stated it clearly. The movement itself beats at 28,800 beats per hour, features hacking and hand winding, has a quick set date, comes with 42 hours of power reserve, and has a 30-minute chronograph. Now the chronograph action is nice and snappy, although starting the chrono does require quite a bit of force. Now this movement is what is called the modular chronograph. What that means is that it's not a chronograph movement from the ground up, but is actually a regular three-hand movement, in this case the ETA 2892, with a chronograph module mounted on top. The potential downfall, as I called it earlier, is the fact that the chrono module is unserviceable, well, at least outside of the factory, as there are no replacement parts for it. What that means is that if something goes wrong with the chrono module, it gets completely swapped by a new one sent from the factory, which could be costly. Now don't get me wrong, the module can be disassembled, as I read of a watchmaker doing it. However, he says it was such a PITA to assemble back that he would never like to do it again. Now before you dismiss the watch completely because of this, there is the upside. You see, if there is nothing wrong with the chrono module, the watch service is done by just doing the service of the base module, meaning it is less time consuming than servicing a complete chrono movement like the Valju, which in turn means the service cost is lower than on regular chronographs. Now to conclude, the Longines Bi-Compax is an incredibly beautiful chronograph from a brand with one of the richest histories when it comes to chronographs. Sadly, they're only a shadow of what they used to be, but still, even like this, as part of the SWAT group and not a true manufacturer, the beauty and restraint in design and size really makes this watch one of the most beautiful I had in my hands. Now as a brand new watch, I find it to be a bit too high when it comes to the price. But as a second-hand watch, the sheer beauty on both sides of the watch makes the price acceptable. Well, this pretty much completes this week's review, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe by pressing this button right here. And until the next video, bye.